Welcome back. The B20 summit in Johannesburg is now in its second day, bringing together global businesses and leaders to advance this year's theme, inclusive growth and shared prosperity through global cooperation. Joining us live from the summit at this point is NABILA HUSSAIN, Chairperson of Architects of Diversity, to share key insights and what these developments could mean for Malaysia moving forward. Hi NABILA, thanks for doing this despite, of course, what I can only imagine is quite a busy time at the summit. This year's summit carries the theme inclusive growth and shared prosperity through global cooperation. From what you've seen on day one, what have been some of these standout takeaways or the dominant messages at the summit so far?
Thank you, Jessie. So absolutely, as you have rightly pointed out, cooperation has been at the center of this. And I think it's important that we note that the B20 and the G20 hosted by South Africa is in many ways a culmination of various conversations and work streams building on the past G20 presidencies, also by countries in the global south, ranging from India to Indonesia to Brazil. And this is an important milestone in this continued journey to strengthen the global south's role in today's increasingly multipolar world. So a few key takeaways. The spirit of collectivism really came through very clearly, leveraging the diversity both in Africa but also around the world. And the summit actually started with a visual representation of this, with performances showcasing the talent across the continent, from opera to youth choir. And so with this, it's really the recognition that the global economy and our future depends on us opening up to one another. And this comes with a desire to push on pragmatically despite ongoing challenges. So no diminishing the challenges that exist, but also recognizing the strengths and reaffirming the role of principled multilateralism in this multipolar world. We also saw inclusion, prosperity, opportunity, and growth take center stage, but importantly, these were qualified with the goal of moving from buzzwords to tangible actions and outcomes.
Well, you mentioned to push on pragmatically. There's also a strong push for more inclusive global cooperation at the summit this year. How is that shaping the major debates and policies, especially around finance, trade and infrastructure?
Absolutely. It's very clear that it's about building bridges, and that specifically international trade is not a zero-sum game. Win-win scenarios are possible, again, reaffirming multilateralism, pluralism, and partnerships. And with this, there is a need to redefine and reimagine existing mechanisms and structures to respond to these new risks and challenges. So one example is one initiative that was shared, which is the transformation of the role of development finance in unlocking not only access to finance, but also access to digital infrastructure. And this was specifically ensuring that farmers have access to digital technologies in order to drive agricultural transformation. So this is one of the ways that we see the African continent showcasing how they are navigating the changing environment around finance, trade, and infrastructure. Not new institutions or mechanisms, but evolution and transformation. And it's something that we absolutely see in Southeast Asia as well. Again, recognizing those parallels between both within the global south, between Africa and Asia. So it's really about rebuilding trust, redefining and reimagining existing pathways, and signaling predictability to both partners and investors.
You mentioned transformation. That, of course, also includes change with action. Globally, given the uncertainties and, shifting market dynamics as well, how can these discussions or these early discussions, what can it do to signal for Malaysia's economic positioning as Malaysia too navigates through these global uncertainties and shifting geopolitics, if you will?
So I would say that Malaysia's strength is really in staying the course. And we have been through a multitude of challenges, whether it's the financial crisis, global pandemic, or ongoing geopolitical circumstances. And we have demonstrated a great amount of wisdom, whether it's diplomatic, strategic, economic, in navigating this often uncertain terrain. One area that we've done incredibly well is semiconductor sector, building over the years an ecosystem that now serves the world and has been built over the last 50 years. So it will be absolutely important that we continue thinking about these partnerships, but it also presents an opportunity for new and renewed partnerships. And one example of this is South Africa, where at its height in 2012, Malaysia's bilateral trade with South Africa stood at over $4 billion, and today it stands at $1.7 billion. And for Malaysia, that is absolutely an opportunity to explore how we might renew and rejuvenate that relationship. And in fact, Prime Minister Dr. Sri Anwar Ibrahim will be in South Africa as chair of ASEAN later this week. And so our position as an open trading nation is one that we have stood by and will continue to stand by, and it will continue to serve us well. But at the same time, it's important that we think about this with a clear sense of ambition, boldness, and courage, because these are absolutely difficult and challenging environments that we're operating in.
I like that word, or to be bold and to have courage. Based on your engagements so far, Nabila, what opportunities could Malaysia capitalize in terms of being bold and having courage in terms of green transition or regional trade or any other agenda under the B20 summit?
Right, so I think it's very interesting to note the parallels between Malaysia's theme for its ASEAN chairmanship and South Africa's theme for its G20 chairmanship, right? So ASEAN 2025 is anchored on inclusivity and sustainability, while South Africa has anchored its G20 on the theme of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. And these themes consistently appear throughout the recommendations, which have also been published on the G20 website. And for Malaysia, what this means as we think about being bold and having courage and pushing forward, I think three key areas, as you already said, Jesse: green energy, renewable energy, that's absolutely one piece, semiconductors, and the third I would say is halal. So just to give you some numbers, the global halal economy is valued at over 2.7 trillion USD and is forecast to reach 5 to 6 trillion USD by 2030. Malaysia's halal industry master plan estimates that the African continent's halal market was at $200 billion in 2018 and is expected to double to $400 billion by 2030. So this again presents us an opportunity to explore how these two regions, Malaysia leading ASEAN and South Africa leading G20, could potentially work together to unlock that potential and opportunities, resulting in progress for the people of both our regions.
Well, one of the recurring themes I've noticed from the many conversations or the agenda of the summit is workforce development. What strategies or insights can help Malaysia strengthen our talent pipeline in terms of what is being discussed at the summit, and how can that benefit Malaysia?
Yes, I think it cannot be overstated that human capital is our most valuable renewable resource, and we have seen at the Malaysian level the focus and commitment demonstrated by the Ministry of Human Resources, or KASUMA, together with agencies such as Talent Corp, working to build this resilient ecosystem. But thinking about strategies, I think two main things. One is that the talent pipeline does not begin or end with the Ministry of Human Resources. Today we are seeing more and more people in the older brackets of the demographics wanting to remain in the workforce and continuing to serve. And at the same time, we are seeing that it's the formative years that provide those strong foundations for the talent pipeline. So in a practical sense, it's really thinking about how the talent pipeline starts at a very young age and extends all the way into the silver years, which then means cross-ministerial collaboration becomes critical, starting with the Ministry of Education, moving to higher education, and human resources. That's one piece. And the second is that there was a very clear perspective that talent and skills frameworks that exist today often struggle to keep pace with the developments around us, whether it is technology opportunities or challenges. And so while we see that workforce transformation is happening, very often at the same time, university structures and classrooms have remained the same. So there is a greater need for agility and adaptability of the education environment to match that of the employment environment.
Right, Nabila, we see South Africa, of course, host of the summit. There's also a noticeable Global South conversation and narrative. How do you see Global South coming together to contribute towards shared prosperity, and what lessons from African economies might be relevant to Malaysia?
Right, so the Global South collaboration or South-South collaboration is not new. It has been here for decades, but clearly we see a renewed focus. And so thinking about how Malaysia can learn from Africa, the African continent or African economies, one example that is not new is rapid response policy making. And this is an approach that acknowledges the blurred lines between the physical and the digital. So an example of this is the use of drones to deliver blood in rural areas. And how this plays out in practice requires policies that bring together Ministry of Health, Department of Civil Aviation, Ministry of Human Resources. So it's really about bringing together the different stakeholders and recognizing that multi-stakeholder cross-collaboration effort that is required in today's environment. And perhaps conversely, African economies could also learn from Malaysia and ASEAN. I mean, we have seen the success of halal industrial parks, increasingly looking at green industrial parks in the region as well, which recognize that green energy needs to be coupled with enabling levers and incentives for producers of green energy, consumers, but also prosumers, which is this category of industry players that produce and consume green energy. The other piece, of course, is the electrification of Southeast Asia that is at rates that is much higher than that of Africa. So um, the clear reciprocal relationship or the partnership opportunity here also maybe presents the question that could there be a greater role for ASEAN as part of G20? We saw in 2023 that the African Union is now a part of the G20 as a member, and ASEAN as the fourth largest economy. It would not be far-fetched to think, could there be a world in which ASEAN was also part of these G20 conversations?
Nabila, thanks for joining us and weighing in on some of those insights and takeaways from the B20 summit. Of course, we will keep a close eye for more updates coming out from the summit as well. We'll speak to you soon.